Hi, I'm Brandon, and welcome to Fourth Down Fantasy. Now that we've got that overly cheesy intro out of the way, you probably have a few questions. One, what the hell is Fourth Down Fantasy? And two, who the hell are you? Great questions. Fourth Down Fantasy is just this. This is going to be a YouTube series where I probably post, shorter clips on Twitter or Instagram, wherever, where I talk fantasy football with you guys. It's a game that I love. I've been playing it for a long time, and I want to have a place where I can openly share my opinions and strategies, what I've found to work, what I've found that doesn't work, what I think will work this season specifically, stuff like that. It's just meant to be a fun place to talk about a game that a lot of people enjoy, and that hopefully, assuming the best with the season this year, that it can serve as a distraction at a time where we all really need it. It's something that I've dove into pretty heavily over my time playing it, and I know that a lot of other people have as well. So, who am I? I'm 23, I'm a UConn graduate. I used to do a bunch of this sort of on-camera stuff when I was in college. Haven't really been able to do it since. I'm sort of working behind the camera in sports media. But more importantly, what I want to be the most relatable part of this show is that I'm not a super in-depth, football insider or that anything like that. If you were to ask me to be an offensive coordinator for a game, I'd probably just poop my pants and fall over. I think a majority of people who play fantasy football are similar to that. I don't think a lot of people have this super in-depth knowledge of formations and schemes and that kind of thing. And if you do, great, more power to you. I'm sure that does nothing but help your skill in fantasy football. But for the rest of us, I think it's a game of analyzing the information that we have at our fingertips and figuring out how to best evaluate players with the information that we're given. So that's going to be sort of the basis for this series, for this episode especially, because I do want to get into some content. This isn't meant to be just an intro video. But yeah, if this sounds interesting, you guys stick around. There's going to be plenty more to come throughout the season, even throughout the preseason. I plan on doing probably multiple episodes a week. I mean, fantasy football is so fast moving that there's going to be plenty of content to push out more than one episode a week. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, if that sounds good to you guys, stick around. But for now, let's get into episode 1. So the first topic I want to get into, and is super relevant as more and more news blurbs are coming out with padded practices starting this week, is how to sort of intake all the news that you're seeing. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of stuff that comes out that's either filler, or it's coach speak, or it's puff pieces that don't actually mean anything. But then mixed in with that, there's plenty of news that actually does matter. So how do you differentiate? Well, you really have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Look at who this information's coming from, look at how the people are wording it, and look at the content of the message. So let's get into a couple of specific examples. The main place that I'm going to be looking at these blurbs, and that I think a lot of people look at them, is Rotoworld. It's pretty short, concise. I mean, as you read through each of them, it can get a little opinionated in the sub caption. But if you look at just the headline and maybe the first couple lines of the sub caption, that's sort of the facts, if you will, or who said what, at least. Let's take a look at this one first and foremost. This came out yesterday. Eagles head coach Doug Peterson said running back Miles Sanders would be the guy in the Philadelphia backfield this season. Is this important? I sure think it is, because Miles Sanders is a guy that a lot of people have been thinking, has a ton of potential and can be one of the top running backs in the league if he's just given the chance. But you've got so many naysayers saying that, Peterson has never had a workhorse back, or he's always been running back by committee, that kind of thing. So this is pretty significant to me. This tells me that that's probably going to change this year. And to me, the biggest mistake you can make when you're analyzing news throughout the preseason is thinking that coaches are lying to you all the time. Throughout the season, do coaches have a reason to keep their game plans under wraps? Absolutely they do. But if you ignore everything a coach says, you are depriving yourself of potentially valuable fantasy information. Doug Peterson does not have a reason to flat out lie. I mean, I guess he does have a reason, but coaches don't tend to just lie about this kind of thing. If anything, coaches will sort of play coy during the season, like, oh, our guy who's questionable, he's coming along, and he won't give anything away before game day so that the other team can't game plan for, all right, this guy's definitely going to be out, or this guy's definitely going to be in. When it's sort of an early training camp kind of thing with this, this tends to be pretty significant. And I saw somebody compare this, one of the naysayers who, said you can never trust coaches. He compared this to the CJ Spiller news from 2013, which, if any of you remember, some of you hardcore fantasy guys might, they said, we're going to run CJ Spiller until he pukes. That ran the CJ Spiller hype train through the roof. CJ Spiller was a first-round pick that year. I think he already was before that news came out, but that sort of solidified people's confidence in him. And then, the person I'm referring to looked back at that and said, well, that didn't mean anything, so why does this mean something? Here's the thing, the Spiller news did mean something. They gave Spiller that workload early in the year. They tried to run him until he puked. He just wasn't very good. Miles Sanders, we all think and hope, and so based on the flashes we saw last year, is probably good. So depending on what you think of Miles Sanders' skill level at least, now you know that he's going to get the chance to have that workhorse load. And that's huge. Because if you believe in his skill level, then that means you probably believe those two things working together in a good offense, he's going to be a potential top 5 running back. So this is one of the bigger news blurbs, and that's how I would personally interpret that right now. But then there's other news blurbs that, even from this, so far, this training camp, this offseason, that don't mean as much. So here's another one from August 16th. This one's about Chris Herndon. New York Daily News' Charles McDonald reports that Jets coach Adam Gase has big expectations for Chris Herndon. Now, this is another, sort of fantasy darling that we keep hoping is going to be better than he's actually been, and maybe that breakout is coming this year. But this, to me, this isn't anything, and I'll tell you why. We don't know what Adam Gase's definition of big expectations is. So if you are looking at this news blurb and thinking that, man, Chris Herndon is going to be a beast this year, or at least he'll have the opportunity to be a beast, for all we know, Adam Gase's big expectations for Chris Herndon could be a 5 touchdown, 600-yard year, which is serviceable. That's not bad. But it's these kind of more vaguely worded things that are up to interpretation of what a coach means that can become a problem, because different people will read this in different ways. Your definition of big expectations could be 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. My definition of big expectations for a guy who has shown literally pretty much nothing for fantasy purposes because he keeps getting hurt could be just a healthy season where he averages 50 yards a game, maybe falls into a touchdown here and there. That could be, because that's kind of big compared to what he's done so far. So anything that's vaguely worded, you need to look into and decide, do I actually want to take that as, whatever my definition of this is, or do I need to kind of temper my expectations because I don't know what the coach was exactly saying? You compare that to the sort of Miles Sanders thing. When Doug Peterson says Miles Sanders is being groomed to be the guy, there's not really a whole lot of ways to interpret that other than he's going to give him the chance to be a workhorse. That's it. That's pretty black and white. So that kind of thing is important to distinguish between. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is just when you're looking at where the news is coming from, and I don't mean a site like RotoWorld, I mean when you see who RotoWorld is sourcing, because there's a lot of people out there who will dismiss basically beat writer predictions, saying that, oh, this is just a prediction, this doesn't mean much. And in some cases, that's true, it's just a prediction, but what you have to realize is these beat writers are way closer to the teams than we are. So when unless they have a bad reputation of being wrong and lying and falsely reporting, which I don't think many beat writers do, if they do, let me know, they are pretty good at getting a feel for what a team wants to do. So if a beat writer is saying, hey, this rookie wide receiver isn't expected to produce a lot, or I'm getting the feeling that this rookie running back is really going to push for touches and is going to get 10 to 12 a game. Yeah, that's just an arbitrary prediction, but at the same time, it's a very educated arbitrary prediction. So I wouldn't say to just throw that away And it's these sort of little strategies about analyzing news that can make or break your fantasy season, because everybody has access to these blurbs, everybody can see them, and it's up to you to intake them the correct way, or at least try to interpret them in a way that is conducive to fantasy success. So that's my rant on just information and how to process it, in my opinion. So we'll have more episodes of these coming. Guys, thank you for tuning in to episode 1, the maiden voyage of Fourth Down Fantasy YouTube series or podcast or whatever you want to call it. Plenty more to come. I'll see you guys next time.